All right. I just want to talk about today health and mental health and also physical health because I know for both of us, physical health at least is quite important. We both like exercising. We both like doing things that are good for our bodies. But I also want to talk a little bit about mental health because it's really important, I think, and it's not something that's talked about enough. And this might just seem like propaganda because we're both studying psychology, and it's like we just want people to go get therapy just so we have jobs later. But no, no, yeah, I just wanted to talk about our experiences. At least start out with that, and yeah, if there's anything particular you do, um, to be healthy.
Well, I think mental health and physical health often go together because you mentioned exercise, which we both like to a certain degree. And physical exercise can really boost your mental health in a lot of ways, at least I found. And I think that's the general advice. Obviously, not neither of us are psychologists yet, but I think that's the general advice that, if you feel like you're stuck in a rut mentally, a lot of people will tell you, well, you need to, in order to get out of that, you need to activate yourself physically. And that's the way to kind of pull yourself out of feeling like you're stuck in like a dark mental spiral, like depression or something. That's what I found, so I think those two things go well together. I don't. I exercise regularly now, so I'm not. Um, but I think by physical health you probably mean in a broader sense, like not just exercise, but well, if I have any experience with physical ailments, is that a
I mean, also yeah, and also things like if there's anything like dietary things that you rules you have for yourself, um, and yeah, also just any problems with health you've had.
well, I had a fucked up thing with my feet that began 2 years ago, which I've talked enough about. Yeah, I think that's a boring thing to get into with my feet, but in order my I don't really have a meal plan as such.
No.
I just kind of eat, like I watch what I eat. I make sure that my diet does not just consist of chips and candy, and those things are actually not included at all. I just kind of eat what I perceive to be healthy in the general sense. So oatmeal is a healthy breakfast. All right, I'll just eat that every day. Can't do me no harm. And I eat I don't know what that's called in rye bread.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Right. Bread.
yeah, rye bread. I make sure I get my proteins and stuff, and I want to make sure that I'm energized because a lot of times throughout the day, the things I eat, I'm also motivated to eat them by how much energy they supply to me after I've eaten them. So it's not, for me, it's not just about I need to make sure that my body has what it needs to for example build muscles, but I also need to get through this lecture and make sure I don't perceive it like a zombie. So you know I I'm not an athlete. I don't eat like a fucking athlete, but
No.
I make sure I don't eat like a slob at least.
Yeah. And you've told me about before. I think it's very interesting your like thoughts on both alcohol and then also sugar and like
Mm.
sweets.
Yeah, I don't have anything against people taking those things or consuming those things like sugar or alcohol. But for me, it's more like have a certain mental barrier about consuming alcohol, for example, because I know that in the end it's not really good for me. It's good for me in the sense that maybe I can have a good time when I'm out with friends, and I can get a little bit tipsy, and I can have fun that way. But mostly it's just I've actually stopped consuming alcohol completely because I each time after I do it, if I have a hangover the day after, I feel kind of I feel kind of disgusted, but not exactly associated with shame, but more the feeling of something that I know that isn't exactly healthy for me being inside my body. I don't like that feeling, whether it's candy, whether it's alcohol or anything of that sort. Just the idea of putting something inside me that I know isn't healthy. And it's more of a mental thing. I know if I ate like a bag of chips, I wouldn't die.
Yeah.
It wouldn't do me harm at all. But it's more like I have this thing where if I know I've just done that, for example, eating a bag of chips, I can't help but feel this sense of disgust. And the reason why I'm underlining it's because I don't want people to think that this comes from sort of an arrogant place of,
Mm-hmm.
I'm better than you. I don't eat sugar.
Yeah, that's exactly why I wanted to mention it because I've never because you talked to me about it, like we've been talking about it when we're out and I'm drinking and you're not,
Mm.
and like with other friends there too. And I was just interested in it because it's never come off as like an ego thing. It's not like oh, I'm too high, like no, like I'm too good for alcohol, and like sugar, like I'm above that, and you're
Mm.
beneath. Like it's never come off that way, and it's because I've always just been, I mean, right from the beginning, I've been interested in like your cognitive like processes,
You
also
are an upcoming psychologist, so
exactly, but also like for example, especially first semester with like a relationship towards school and like
mm.
going so in depth with everything in your life. Remember, we had a lot of talks about that in first semester. And I was just interested about this. You call it like a mental barrier. That it's like even though you know that eating a sweet isn't necessarily bad for you, or
Mm.
drinking alcohol isn't bad for you. It's more that like, and you've also talked to me about how like you've had your fun with alcohol.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you feel like you've gotten out of it what you can.
Mhm.
But I don't, it's just like the mental like thing that keeping you away from it. It's just interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't recommend it to anyone who does want to have some fun and that do. No, I mean, the thing with alcohol is I can definitely have a good time out with friends without it.
Mm-hmm.
And if I couldn't, I would probably still be drinking. But
Yeah.
but since I found out through you know, empirical evidence, I've been out with friends and I've um uh, I haven't consumed alcohol when I'm out with friends when we're going to a party, and I've had just as much fun as I think I would have had if I did drink. And to me that kind of settles the deal. And as you said, I feel like I've had my fair share of alcohol in the sense that I know what it has to offer me now. I've been drinking probably since I was 16. I've never been a heavy drinker, I've never
No.
been a fucking alcoholic, but I've been drinking around that time on occasion, and I've been blackout drunk, I've been tipsy, I've been drunk in a way in between. I've tried probably all the degrees of being drunk, and at the end of the day, it's not it's not fun enough for me to keep doing it to a point where it might actually become sort of a semi unhealthy thing for me in the
Mm.
long run. As I said, I'm never gonna be an alcoholic, but consuming even alcohol moderately over a long period of time can do something substantial. I think I'm not an expert exactly, but I've had friends who've been drinking a lot of years, for decades, and they tell me how they've just kind of slowed down in a sense,
Mm.
and they don't know if they can contribute that to their consummation of alcohol. But they, physically, they think they would have been in better shape if they had stopped drinking years ago.
Mm.
Those kind of things kind of roll in my head for
Yeah.
also my motivation. But it's
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's interesting how like we all have different, I don't know, guess things we focus on. Because it's definitely possible to have healthy relationships with alcohol. You know, like I think there's even, I don't think an unhealthy relationship with alcohol necessarily is alcoholism. But I do think there are healthy ways, especially because in this day and age, most of the things we put in our bodies can be traced back to some like laboratory. There are some chemicals in it. So much of the things we eat, especially if it's processed, especially if you don't have that much money for like proper ecological things, which personally I don't, and a lot of people don't. You know, you go for something cheaper, and then you're putting a bunch of shit you just don't know what is into your body, right? So like, I don't know. I think it's possible to have a healthy relationship with alcohol, and that's just to say that like it's completely fine to stop. You know, if you don't think it's doing anything good for you, and it's also fine for someone to keep drinking. You know, as long as like as long as you have a healthy relationship with it, I think. And but yeah, it's just interesting to me, like how different people, like the relationship different people have with different things.
Yeah, yeah.
Like the things with me and alcohol, I've always had, I think, quite a healthy relationship. I used to, there was like I started drinking in like, I think it was when I was 14, in like 8th grade, and we had these parties, and I remember having a really bad time. It's one of the few times I've thrown up from drinking alcohol. And then for like 4 years while I was in Kenya, I just did not. I wasn't like I will never drink, but I was just like I didn't want to drink. I didn't have. I don't know. I guess like I didn't want to drink. I'd also seen some of the effects alcoholism could have on people.
Do you think that's what stopped you? Like that was the thing that made you not want to drink at that time?
I mean, I think that was more my excuse. It was also like my excuse was I was like I will never do any kind of drug ever in my life just because I'm like I don't like what it does to people and I don't want to be addicted. But as I've gotten older, I'm like that wasn't really why I stopped drinking. It was more because I'd had bad experiences with it. But maybe, you know, as I'm older, I've learned more, and I've with better people maybe it wouldn't be as bad, and that's what it's been. I drink when I'm at a party or when I'm out with someone. Occasionally, it's not something I do a lot, but I think my first like unhealthy experience with alcohol came recently when we were going to a party with the university, and there was going to be a lot of people there, and I'm not the most socially adept person. I sometimes if I have to go into a social setting with a lot of people, I can start to feel anxious, and I was feeling quite anxious this day, just the thought of being around that many people. And so before we went out, I took a couple of shots just to like alleviate it. And like for some people like pre-gaming works, right? But it was I don't know, it was something a bit sad about it. I was just there in my own place, just you know, drinking and then going. But we met. It was just because I didn't know if we were like me and our friends were going to drink before the party when we met. We ended up doing that, so I ended up getting more drunk.
So you wanted to make sure that you got alcohol into your system before you actually arrived.
Yeah, exactly. Like to be able to handle the social situation. I just don't think that was looking back healthy. I know it helped on the day. It helped me feel better about it. It helped me open myself up. But looking back, I was like, maybe I shouldn't do that very often.
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about it on your behalf too. You know that, and I not in a critical way, like what a fucking idiot is drinking to calm your nerves. No, no, I've just thought about it because I've never actually seen you. Like there's a reason why at the party I sort of tried to prevent you from keep drinking more, because it seemed as if you weren't in control.
I was just like telling you, I was like, don't let me.
Yeah, don't let me drink. But I also got to the point where it was like, okay, you told me to keep preventing you from drinking, but then you kept drinking even though I told you not to. And then I was like, well, and then I told you like, well, if you really want to stop drinking right now, you have to make the decision within yourself, because that's the way it works. You know, I can't come from the outside and just fucking make you stop as much as I wanted to in that moment. But I remember thinking about that a bit the day after, and I remember telling you at the party like, I told you, or I asked you, do you genuinely think that you wouldn't be able to do this right now, this social setting, with the people you're speaking with, and being here just sitting down and talking? And I don't mean just sitting down and talking as if that's just an easy thing, but I'm saying, I'm genuinely asking, like, do you think you would be able to cope with that situation, like without the alcohol? Because to me, it's like I've known you for a bit now, you know, and I genuinely think you would. I just think it kind of seems to you like you wouldn't be able to, and that's maybe the fear of the anticipation of the thing. But I could imagine if you just if you went in there and you sat at the table and you sort of started conversation, at some point during the evening, you would have probably forgotten all about your sober state and just went right ahead with speaking. But what do you think?
I mean, that's usually what ends up happening. Like once I get there, I start having more fun. The problem is my social battery can run out very quickly, and then I'll feel this like, if it happens, I can feel this like dread about being there. Like suddenly, it's happened before while we've been out with like a bigger group of people, where suddenly it's just like I don't want to be there anymore, and I'm just like, there's just so many people around, and I feel kind of like isolated in a way. And I think alcohol sometimes helps with that. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I'm still drunk and it happens. So I don't know.
So you sometimes use alcohol to facilitate the exit of the social situation, not the coming up to the party, for example. You use it sometimes when you want to get rid of that dread, as you described it, as of wanting to leave, even though because your social batteries are spent. Like you use it as a way, as a means of coping with these sort of want to exit this situation.
Yeah. I mean, I've never been very good at saying no. And going further with that, I've never been very good at being like, all right, I'm gonna leave while like everyone's having fun, and like, I don't know, I've never enjoyed like in a group of people that I don't really know, I don't like putting attention to myself. And I feel like that happens if I'm like, all right, gotta go. And sometimes I just keep myself there. The main thing about alcohol, it makes me open up, which I like. I think it does that to a lot of people. Most people, like getting a little bit tipsy opens them up to more conversation, especially meeting new people. So I definitely enjoy doing it. Sometimes when we go somewhere, and then I have drinks with other people. I think that's what I like the most. It was more a problem that one party where it's like I was already a bit higher than what I wanted to be. Not higher, like drunker.
You roll like 15 joints before joining the party.
I was more drunk than I wanted to be when I came in there, right? Fun thing about that night, like, I drank a lot. I got like a lot of different things.
You don't say?
I didn't pay for a single thing that night.
No, I noticed.
Nothing.
A girl at the party actually, I would say she kind of coerced you into drinking, and I could imagine she was the one who paid for most of it.
I mean, first she had her own like vodka bottle, and she bought shots. The thing is, because we'd become friends because of like our project group, and it was the first time she'd ever seen me at a party, right? I don't know. She was just like she wanted to see me drunk, I guess. She was like, she wanted to see me more, just because through knowing me, she knows I don't go out very often, and she's someone who goes out all the time. So I think she just wanted to see what I would be like with my guard down, I guess.
That just shows the different mentalities, because if I were so certain that you didn't go out very often, my first thought wouldn't be, so let's pour some fucking alcohol into this
I mean, I let it all happen. Like I remember everything from that night. I was in full control. Even all the times when I was like to you, don't let me drink anymore. It was fully on myself to drink more. It wasn't like I was being coerced or that it was against my will. And when I ended up stopping, it was like I did stop on my own. When I was like, okay, I was like, a couple more and I'll be the place where I don't want to be. But yeah, I was just more open to like to people coming over, be like, come on, take a shot. And I was like, oh, I'm not gonna say no.
I believe you. It was you making those decisions. I mean, it couldn't have been anybody else. Oh, yeah. I don't think it was probably the best display of self-control I've ever seen, but it was definitely you making those decisions. And I'm not criticizing you. I just I'm not surprised by the fact that you've had some thoughts about that night. Either because I had as well, but I thought it was all right. No, and it wasn't like I was trying to be like your dad or anything. Come on, son, you need to stop drinking. There was just more like I just kind of wanted to look out for you.
Yeah, of course.
In the sense, just because from the outside perspective, it seemed as if you were kind of at your limit in terms of alcohol intake. But it's interesting, this thing, because usually the correct way, I think, and this might seem arrogant, to consume alcohol in those contexts is to use the alcohols as a means to have fun. But it seems like, and fun should be the goal, but it seems like a lot of people use the alcohol as the goal. Like the goal is to meet up and we need to drink. Whereas to me, it's always like, when I drank, I was like, okay, I drink now so I can slip into the fun mode a bit more smoothly, and that's always the way I've been consuming alcohol. But obviously there are ways to use alcohol as a means where it still kind of seems a bit like a thing you wouldn't. I mean, I don't know if you what you would describe your consummation of alcohol as at that night. Um, I mean, I don't maybe not unhealthy, but it just probably not the way you want to consume it most optimally.
No,
Seems.
I definitely didn't feel great coming back home. Like I called my girlfriend. I was just like on call while I was like sat in my bathroom. I didn't throw up, but I felt like I had to. So it wasn't that bad. I didn't like, and I remember everything, but I didn't feel very good. I don't know. When I drink, it's like it's also the way alcohol makes you feel can be fun, especially because I had those like in high school, like 4 or 5 years where I did not drink very much. Where it's just I guess like now that I'm in university, I'm just more like I don't want to get to the point where I'm like, oh, every night I'm going out, or that I get to the point where I black out. Like I've never tried it, and I never want to try
I don't
having
think
like a
either of us
blackout.
will try that lifestyle.
No, but even just like I don't want to have like okay, this time like this one time I'm gonna go and just get super drunk. Like no, that's never my goal. Like, and I think I'm quite good at, even though it might not seem like it from your perspective, I think I'm good enough to regulate myself to a limit. Like, I'm good at making sure I don't go past like the point of no return.
Yeah,
I'm not always good at like going from like at like staying at lower levels because I'm like, oh, okay, I can go a bit higher. But like
yeah,
I'm good at not going over the limit.
yeah. You have like a you don't pass the point of no return.
Yeah, exactly, and I'm glad. So usually I think I can control it. It was just, yeah. Looking back at that one time, I'm like, I probably won't do that again. I still like pre gaming with people, but maybe I won't just drink alone just to dampen my nerves. Like, there's probably way healthier things that I can do to get over my anxiety sometimes.
I mean, you can call me up just before. I mean, we're not exactly each other's therapists, although it might seem that way sometimes. But you're welcome to call me up whenever right before, because I think it's not like I don't get like this feeling of semi anxiety before such a thing. And I think a lot of the thing, it's just like the same kind of anxiety you sometimes feel before an exam. It's just the fucking anticipation of it.
Yeah.
And I think if we were to engage in conversation before the actual event, which we did,
Yeah.
but if we were to do it in the comfort of our home, maybe that could kind of make a more smooth transition into the social interaction that takes place when we actually meet each other in person.
Yeah.
So and it's fine. Well, do you think? Because I'm kind of interested. What do you think kind of changed for you during that event in terms of feeling anxious about it the time before? Because or have you felt that way in a lot of the events that we've had in relation to the university?
Like the anxiety before.
Yeah. Or was that just kind of a one-off thing, right?
Well, I mean, the first month we were here, where there were all those things happening like all the time.
There were a lot of introductory events
Yeah,
when we started at the university.
and I just moved to the city, and I knew no one, right? So I prepared myself for a while to make sure that I was game for everything, that I would go, right? I prepared myself for a long time. But then I got my apartment, and long time went, and then smaller friend group, like I hang out with you and a couple other people, and we sometimes go out, and most of the time we just talk. And then I don't know, this one like event came that was just big, I guess. I don't know. The thing is like there's some times been where we've been out, especially when other people come, right? Where I can have fun and then suddenly I like go back into my bubble, or like I'll just sit back a bit. And I don't know. I guess I just that day I didn't want that to happen, and I woken up and I had that and it just grew all day up until, but yeah, it wasn't like a. It's not like I was having like an anxiety attack. I was just
Uh,
yeah anxious, and I let it get the better of me. I think.
well, it happens.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like you made some kind of grand mistake. I mean, you drank alcohol before, meeting at a party. That's probably the most normal thing you can do here in Denmark. But you know,
Yeah.
but yeah, it is interesting the way we. That's probably not the way you want to drink. Um, it seems like for you personally, moving forward.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I think I'll stay mostly to drinking when I'm with people.
oh
Like,
yeah, yeah.
it's like drinking when I'm alone. That's kind of been the thing that I've always been like. That's what I want to avoid. Because even though it's like, it was purely, no, yeah, that does make sense. Yeah, I think I want to stay away from drinking alone.
Yeah, yeah. At least wait until you're like 65 and you're unhappily married, and you're sitting with your wine glass, after dinner. The stereotypical way to drink alone in every TV show ever. You know, but
My goal in life is to never be unhappily married. I guess that's the goal of many people, but I think it will happen.
all right, that's a hopeful. Maybe, maybe. Um, as I've already mentioned, I'm just not gonna get married, so I can't ever be. I can be unhappy, but not unhappily married.
True, you avoid the problem by not letting it happen.
Yeah, if I regard the problem as marriage and not the thing at being unhappy, then I guess I avoid the problem. But I'm probably still gonna be unhappy, maybe. But
What
yeah,
if you're unhappy because you don't have someone? Or do you still want someone, you just don't
I
want to
mean,
get
I can
married?
definitely think you can have someone without being married.
I mean, yeah.
I
It happens.
don't. I
No,
think
yeah.
I think I can have someone in my life without. I can probably have just as intimate a relationship with a romantic partner without the necessity for marriage. I think.
For sure. Right?
Um,
People have yeah,
but if
partners that
you're
are
just asking in general, if I do I think I would be unhappy if I didn't have anyone at all? Like not in regard to being married or not, but just like maybe it's hard. I mean, I'm 23 now, so it's kind of hard for me to like look into
yeah.
the future and be like, am I gonna be unhappy if I don't have a romantic partner?
It's a bit of a tough question to just put on you like that.
No, no. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, maybe if I didn't have a dog as a substitute, at least, then maybe I would
Yeah.
probably be
Like
unhappy.
it's not like you won't have anything.
Hopefully not. I mean, sometimes I don't know. I don't know that, but I guess the broader thing here is loneliness.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel lonely? I do sometimes, but
Yeah. I feel like sometimes I've felt lonely. It's easy for me not to feel lonely. It was because I have my girlfriend and I talk to her every day. Even though like it can feel lonely being apart because she lives far away, so we don't see each other very often. It can feel lonely and it can be very hard to be apart. But like I don't perceive myself as lonely because I have her, you know? Like yeah, like I don't know. I guess I'm like sometimes I feel lonely, but I'm not lonely in that sense. But I've been lonely before.
yeah, and I think those intermittent feelings of loneliness because you're apart
Mm,
are totally worth it when you're to like in the
absolutely.
grand scheme of things
Yeah.
because you're together. So I I mean sometimes I feel like a deep fundamental loneliness because I never speak to my family like
Yeah.
almost ever. So when it's weekend and I know my friends are probably speaking to maybe some other friends or maybe they're hanging out in in town drinking.
Yeah.
I can get a bit lonely. And I'm not saying this to make anyone feel sad for me, but I'm just trying to give my 50 cents on this topic.
Yeah.
Whereas I sometimes feel a deep fundamental loneliness, and the way I've been trying to deal with it is just to stay busy all the fucking time,
Yeah.
like preoccupying your mind with everything, because the moment you stop and you look around and you see no one, it's it that's when it's the worst. You don't want to let yourself notice the loneliness.
Yeah.
You want to you don't even want to interact with your loneliness. You want to have the loneliness be lonely and just leave it alone, you know.
Yeah.
So but you know, a lot of people feel that way, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I I think there's like the whole thing about keeping busy is very relevant to a lot of people. I had this talk with someone not that long ago whose dad, like whose mother had died at some point, and her dad, this had been while the dad was still working, and he had, like the day after his wife's death, like they were very happy together, but the
Mm.
day after he had gone back to work, right? He was like very practical, right? He'd just got been busy for the next 20 years after his wife's death,
Yeah.
right? And he hadn't been that like emotionally available, especially for his daughter, but but he um but then once he retired, things just went very downhill for him because that's when he kind of had to, I don't know, I guess like approach or acknowledge
Yeah, yeah,
his loneliness, like his deep underlying loneliness,
yeah.
and it just sent him down a shaft, like into the void. And a lot of people keep themselves busy to avoid loneliness, and I think it can be done in more healthy ways, like they're the people who just delve into work just to keep themselves busy, and then there's the other kind where it's like doing meaningful things.
Yeah, sure, definitely. Although I would make the distinction between suppressing loneliness and looking away from loneliness, knowing the fact that it will only do you harm if you try to kind of delve into it.
Yeah.
Because I already know that for me personally, there's not a lot of things I can get out of sort of wallowing in my loneliness.
Yeah.
Like I acknowledge that a lot of times, especially recently, I felt a deep sense of loneliness.
Mm.
But just sitting here acknowledging it right now
Yeah.
means that I'm not actually suppressing it.
Absolutely.
So I wouldn't say that it's a really unhealthy thing for me.
No.
I think for me it's just the case of, it's a matter of surviving mentally. Like
Yeah.
I gotta, and it's also for practical reasons. I gotta stay busy. I gotta do stuff in order to keep afloat in this thing we call life. And it's kind of stopping and examining the horizon of loneliness isn't exactly gonna do me much good in the practical aspect of life.
Yeah.
But no, there's the distinction there. But I totally get what you mean. Like, of course, suppressing it. What was it for 20 years? This guy.
Yeah.
And then suddenly acknowledging it because of retirement. I can understand that loneliness probably hit him like a fucking freight train.
Yeah. But if you're, because I guess he also wasn't aware of it, or like
Oh.
didn't acknowledge it. He
Yeah.
probably did feel lonely throughout those 20 years, but didn't accept it.
Yeah.
And like, because we've talked at least a decent bit about your like problems with your family or your loneliness,
Mhm.
and like you speak openly about it. You're speaking right here, right? It's just
Yeah.
gonna go out on the internet. So,
To
right?
25 people.
To 20, yeah, maybe. So yeah, it's not in the same realm as someone who's just
No,
like,
no.
not at all, and that's why it's like it's more healthy, and you're also, the things you do give you meaning, right?
Definitely. That's a great point. I think the meaning sense of it is also what kind of drives me to do it. It's not just a mental escape from loneliness, but it's providing for me the fuel that I need to just make sense of everything.
Yeah.
Worst thing to do in life, I think, is just to stop.
Mm.
Just stop, look around. There's a lot of people that's like, I hear from a lot of people that see me like push myself. I've heard it from you before, and I know you mean it in a great, like, I'm not taking any offense to every time you told me maybe it's all right to take a break sometimes. It is all right to take a break sometimes, but sometimes, most often for me, it's not all right.
Yeah.
Because when I take a break, I'm good at driving myself a bit crazy, up top.
Mm.
It, like me in my apartment, isolated. Let's say we're not going to the university in a couple of days, and not staying busy in the way I've just described. that's not a fucking good idea for me.
No.
That will lead to insanity pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So I'll so definitely the meaning thing is also.
Yeah. And that's also like taking a break also needs to be meaningful. You know? Like if you have a full-time job and you take a week for vacation, but you don't do anything meaningful, you know? Like and meaningful can be something different for a bunch of people. A vacation can to some mean going somewhere, right? Going to a new country. It can mean going out with friends.
Mm.
It can even mean doing some of the things that you haven't been able to do recently, right? Which can for many people it can be reading more, it can be catching up on some shows, or just chilling, you know, like relaxing, getting some sleep. As long as the break, like, cause I'm a big like defender of taking a break once in a while, you know, or at least like taking a step back to like breathe, especially when things are pressing on, right? But like the things you do need to be meaningful.
Yeah, sure.
The times I feel the worst is when like we've talked about this in one of the first podcasts, but some of the times that I feel worse is when I I decide to take a break when I could be doing like more productive stuff, but then what I spend my time doing doesn't give me any satisfaction. That's some of the times where I feel the worst about myself. Or like if I suddenly have time for myself and then I don't know what to do, right? And I'm like, well, what now? Those are the times where I feel probably the worst about myself. And so I really stick by the whole meaning thing, right? It's
Yeah.
like doing things that give you meaning is so important. Also going back to like mental health and physical health even, you know, because those two get together. So it's yeah. And and I'm also a person who tries to at least stay quite busy with things. But yeah, I don't know. I like to keep it meaningful to me.
What is meaningful things like whenever you take a breather, as you said, and you kind of step back, allow yourself to breathe, and you say, well, what you do in your break also has to be meaningful. What would constitute as meaningful in your regard? Like, could you make like playing a video game meaningful? Not that I'm saying that it isn't, but
Yeah.
is that meaningful for you?
Yeah. Sometimes it isn't, and sometimes it's very meaningful. For example, recently I just started playing a game called Chivalry with one of my friends who I play with. I haven't played with him in quite a while because we've both been a bit busy, and some of the like we've gotten a bit bored of the games we used to play online. But then this new one, it was just so much fun, and like for 2 days in a row, we like played at night for 3 hours each day, and like I look back on it so fondly, and I had so much fun, right? And I wanted to get back to it. Those are stuff that give me meaning because it gives me happiness. It makes me um yeah, it feels like I've earned something, you know. I've been working hard throughout the day and then I've earned something, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes playing a video game, like if it's annoying or it's boring or if I'm just playing to do something, that's when it doesn't feel as good, you know.
Yeah.
And the whole like finding meaning thing, it can also be anything. I also find meaning in doing schoolwork, you know. But it's just like I also tend to put a lot of pressure on myself for the different things that I do. And that's mostly what I want to take a break away from sometimes, you know? Like when I realize, okay, I'm actually not enjoying what I'm doing. And by enjoying, I'm not like meaning like I sit there and read through our textbook and be like, that's amazing, you know? But like, but more like I'm getting something out of it, you know? Sometimes I feel like I realize that maybe I'm pushing myself to a place where it's not worth it, you know? And that's when I need to, okay, take a breather and then and reflect and then think about how can I make this better for me, you know?
Mm.
And that can be anything. It can be the things I do when I want to take like when I want to chill. It could be the things I do when I want to do something productive. It's just I don't know. I feel like I try to at least make sure as many things in my life give meaning to myself, and that and and it's easy to like compare meaning to what other people find meaning in. It's like, oh well, if I'm doing this, is that meaningful in like the broader sense? Like, do people would like a successful like businessman look at me and think, oh, this is meaningful? Because probably not. Most of the things I do, like no, but it needs to be personal. If it needs to be meaningful to the individual.
I mean, a lot of the things that are meaningful to this, just random businessman would probably also be a lot of the same things that are meaningful to you, given the fact that, we often just make these stereotypical distanced viewpoints of others.
Oh yeah.
Like of a businessman, but he probably gives himself a breather every now and then, even if he's.
I'm talking about like a very like stereotypical like Hollywood
right
mogul who's just.
I get what you mean,
but yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and we've also acknowledged the fact that a breather can come in a lot of ways, and a vacation is kind of a subjective thing.
Yeah.
And for such a businessman, a vacation for him might just be lighter work. That's the way he kind of finds peace.
And that's like I'll let you speak it, but but I wasn't trying to say that what he thinks like is a break or like what is meaningful to him isn't meaningful. It was just more that like I don't want to compare myself, the things we find meaningful, because right, like even the things you and I find meaningful will be different,
Yeah,
and I think it can be really harmful to constantly compare yourself to other people. It's like, oh, am I doing what society or like other people think is meaningful, or am I doing what I really want, and what I feel is right for me?
Yeah. Maybe those things kind of correlate in a sense that if you do something that you find meaningful, maybe other people will kind of latch on to seeing you put your everything into a certain thing you're doing. And maybe they will perceive that as meaningful for you, even though you may not exactly find the cure for cancer tomorrow. But, maybe the fact that they're seeing the kind of meaningfulness that you put into it from your subjective point of view.
Yeah.
And they're like, look at how hard he's trying. And they find inspiration in that.
That's real.
Yeah, I think those things are connected in that way.
Yeah.
I would at least hope so.
Just not like what's meaningful to you is what I need to do.
No,
it's more
not in a mirror sense.
Yeah. Yeah, you can be like, I admire this person doing what he loves.
Yeah.
Let me do that. Not what he loves.
Yeah.
She loves, but what I love. And if a lot of people don't know what that is, right? Especially in our age, people, right? Like when you're young, you can be so confused, right? Like, do you know what you truly want to do with life?
That's kind of the second topic that I want that I want to bring up. The thing about interest, because we can just segue into that. That's completely fine. I mean, the thing for me when it comes to interests, I have been a bit confused in that regard, or I've been conflicted is probably because I've never been confused in the sense that I don't have any ideas. I don't know. I just have too many. Sometimes I want to just be a professional musician. That could be awesome, right? Just being in a band and just create awesome music. And sometimes I just think I want to be an artist in some way and just put my shit out there, no matter what it is. Yeah, I mean, I guess this could be considered art. I mean, there's a lot of artists on YouTube recently, given that podcasts are fucking everywhere, and other times I want to be. I just want to be a clinical psychologist because that's actually what I'm studying. That is a bit rare. Those times where you just want to be that, but I am conflicted in a sense that I feel like I'm being pulled by my different passions into so many different directions that I don't actually take a long and meaningful step into any of them. Yeah. I feel like it's kind of like being pulled from all sides. You're not really ending up anywhere. You're not making progress. And that's also why I kind of wake up and I just kind of try to hit all these different things at once so I can take one step in every direction. Yeah. But it's no, just say what you were gonna say because I collect my thoughts.
Yeah, sure. I think I think there's two like of the main things that people our age, like young people struggle with, and it's either too many interests or not knowing what your interests are. Be like what do I really want? Like what are my passions? And then there's the other one where it's like I just want some because I've also had this right throughout my life. It's been like every couple months I'm like, ooh, this would be awesome, Yeah. And then but it's like I think as I've gotten older, and I'm still only 21, right? Like it's not like I've become wise, you know.
You're an old man.
Not at all. Just older than 17, you know. It's been more that I've been trying to weigh. It's like because I've also been thinking a lot about like, oh, do I like what would I want to do as a career, you know? Sometimes I'm like, because I play a lot of video games, I'm like, why don't I just start making gaming commentary videos and become a gaming streamer on YouTube or something, you know? But then I'm like, oh, that would be so cool, right? Because I also grew up watching like fucking gaming videos on YouTube. But then I'm like, would I still enjoy gaming as much if I had to record, if I had to be all this stuff, you know, make it a job? Would it be one of my favorite pastimes? Like when I have, like when I'm done, you know, like with my day, would I still enjoy gaming? And I'm like, okay, maybe not. Maybe I should just keep gaming as a hobby I do when I have the time for it, right? And that's kind of what I like think about with the different interests. You know, it's like, do I actually want to try to do something specific with this, or is it more like for me, right? And to what extent do I want to go into something? And it's not always easy, right? Like I think you talk about like, oh, sometimes you want to take a further step into something, but sometimes I just have way too many things. I'm like, oh, if I did this, would I always have the time to do the same with something else? You know?
Definitely. I can relate to that feeling of do I have the time? For me, for some reason, I just say fuck it, and I just try to hit everything every day.
Yeah.
If I don't know what I want, I'll just do everything at once. Not at once literally, but
Yeah.
at once in a day. You know, but it's kind of interesting because I don't know if it's a personality trait that makes the distinction between people who has a lot of interest. I don't know if that's creativity. It just feels like I'm kind of kissing my own ass. Like, oh, the reason why I have so many interests is because I'm so creative. I don't know. I don't know if that's true because I think real, genuine creativity is quite rare. But I do think there is because there are some people, and this frustrates me just a little bit. There are some people that just seems like they have it figured out.
Yeah.
Like in 10th grade, I met this dude who was like, I want to be a mechanic. How the fuck do you know?
Fucking
You're
10th grade.
You're in 10th grade. Who did your parents tell you to be a mechanic? That's just what I'm assuming, because I cannot at all relate to being in 10th grade and just knowing that you want to be something like a mechanic. Where the fuck did you even get that idea?
Right. It's like when you're in that age, it's more like for me it was, you know, it's like, and the people I grew up with, it was like, oh, I want to be a professional football player, you know, or I want to be the next big musician.
It was something with a bit more brouhaha, you know.
Yeah, and that's like I guess arrogant to like say, you know, because if the person truly wants to be an engineer, it's a perfectly great thing to get into, right? And engineers are needed, right? If that's your passion, like we've talked about before, like there's some people with like passions where we're like, oh, that could never be like my passion, but it's like great for them. If someone finds their passion, I try to only just be happy for them, and also because an engineer is a more common thing to like want to be into.
It's also
right?
just so specific.
Yeah, but like especially for 10th grade, but like we've talked about one of our professors whose his whole PhD was about like our specific school's system of group work, right? And he's so into it, and sometimes it's a bit comical, but it's like, if he wasn't so into it, we wouldn't have anyone to like to teach us about it, you know? It's like
oh yeah, there's definitely nothing
fun.
Definitely there's nothing wrong with it, and it is like those people are probably pursuing something meaningful in a more effective way than we're pursuing all these different kind of things sporadically. You know, it's probably more efficient to just have one thing that you know you want to do and just fucking go at it. But the frustration just comes from not being able to at all relate to that.
Yeah.
And you know, it's not like, you know, I'm not saying that you know, getting famous or becoming a professional musician or anything like that is superior to being a mechanic. I actually don't at all think that. I think that's a foolish way to think. But I just wish I could relate more to the people who are just like, I want to be a baker. That's what I want to do. I want to bake good cakes for maybe elderly people, which is fucking awesome, but how do you know you want to do that, man?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. It's like frustrating that people have their lives more or less figured out, you know? Not, but like the thing is, everyone goes through like problems, you know? It's just like this specific part of their life, you know? It's like, what do I want to do with my life? What's
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like, ah,
Yeah,
like,
it's
what do you,
how do you? Who told you?
yeah.
Like being a big a
How did you
mechanic.
find out? Right?
Yeah. Have you ever?
I think,
I think when I was a child, I maybe had a little period where I was like, I want to be a baker because I sometimes baked with members of my family, and that was one thing I liked. But I got older.
that's probably also why like people um like want to get into bakery, right? It's an easy thing to like grow up baking. But like engineers more like yeah, like we all have a Lego, right? But like what kid has okay, I guess like working on a car. Okay, maybe these like examples aren't I guess like people just have different interests, right? I mean, I was that kid who was like very it was like reach for the stars with every single like thing I wanted to do, you know? It was either be a football player, be a big YouTuber when YouTube came out, right? Be a big musician. I've never had a tone of music in my life, right? Like I have no sense of music. But I was like, oh yes, I'll be the next big thing.
I think that's all right to feel to just allow yourself to get those kind of dreams. I think that's completely fine. Um, I would rather have that than not, allowing myself to dream that big at all. But it's just at one point we have to. I don't know. Do we? Is there a bit of delay on the video? Or is that just me?
I think the camera's a bit like I mean we're ending soon, so
All right. Let's hope the sound is all right.
yeah, the sound is perfectly fine. It might just be the camera.
All right. I think maybe you just have to settle on something in life at one point, or else you will, unless you want to be someone who just kind of keeps going through life, like sort of what do you call that? An eccentric, just kind of going through life and just keep trying different things until your grave, you know.
And that's fine if that's what someone wants to do. And I feel like with me, it was more like with these different things, it got to a point where I decided to be more pragmatic about it. I was like, if this is my dream and I want to go for it, go for it. But do you want to? Do you want to put in the work? Do you want to potentially fail, you know? Like, are you willing to go that step? And with some of these things, like, it was quite easy, right? With like music, football, right? It was like, yeah, yeah, it's pretty easy to not, you know? But sometimes it was like an actual, like, okay, is right? Because I usually have the thought process that if you want to do something, go for it, you know? Right? Like give it your best shot, you know? It's cringy as hell, right? But like we do only have one life, you know?
Yeah.
It's like if spend it on what you feel is right for you. Spend it on what you need to spend it on. But be ready for what that brings, right? Most people who go into the music genre or like sports, right? Maybe won't get something for a long time, right? Like nothing will come of it, right? Long times of like you won't have much money, you'll have to work multiple jobs. But it's like if you truly want something, you can go after it. And if you don't want to make that effort, then that's fine. And then you can go with something a bit more safe, you know?
Yeah, but it's interesting you said that there were some of the dreams you had at the beginning that you could sort of easily, just put aside because being a professional football player kind of seemed maybe it was because it seemed a bit too unrealistic.
Yeah. I mean, it was like up until like when I was 14, because like 12 to 14, I like really went at like football. Like I trained in my garden every day, and like I was the best in my class, right? So like I had this high, like, and everyone was like, "Oh, you're so good," but then like actually think about it, right? Like, okay, I'm the best in my little class in this little school in a small city in Denmark. You know, like
Yeah, it's definitely important to also have realism with
yeah,
you in your pocket, so you don't just like dream big, but don't snooze.
yeah.
Don't
Like if I truly wanted to go on with it, I could have stepped up my like, trained 5 hours a day. You know, if I had that drive to really do it, I could have maybe gotten there someday. You know, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to like dedicate my life to it.
See that I can relate to not wanting to play football at a professional level.
Oh yeah.
But I cannot at all relate to fucking just wanting to be a mechanic, just knowing that that's what you want. That still pisses me off a bit, but you know,
Yeah.
people are different, I guess.
Yeah, and yeah, everyone has their own passions, and I truly believe everyone has passions. It's just harder for, I guess, some people to find them or accept what our passions are, you know? And it's also there are so many things you can do with your life, right? And we don't see a lot of them. We get right like you get like a university sheet and you're like, oh, okay, there's psychology, there's medicine, there's mechanic, right? So like when you really think about it, there's so many small jobs, but think about the most random thing and you'll be like, there's probably someone who has to do that, you know? And it's like, I don't know, there's jobs for everyone, and I feel like people just have to keep searching. I think it's sad when people don't get to live their dreams or at least do what makes them happy. And it's that there's some people can't just go out and do it, right? There are circumstances like societal, cultural circumstances that keeps them from being able to do it, right? But I just think it's sad when people don't in life get fulfillment out of it.
I would say, yeah, definitely. I would say pursue what is meaningful, not necessarily what makes you happy, because being happy can be a luxury nowadays, and you should, at least by the end of the day, if like try to pursue happiness, definitely, but definitely reach meaningfulness.
Yeah.
Like that that's something I heard, Jordan Peterson talk about, which really opened my mind, about this distinction between living a meaningful life and living a happy one. Because a lot of my life I thought I should strive for happiness. Like that should be the end goal. I should be happy. It
Mm.
Like happiness is what I should go for, right? But he kind of says no, happiness is a luxury. That's something you might be able to do. Like you're not promised happiness in life, but you can make sure that you reach meaningfulness by doing meaningful things, which he kind of attributes to responsibility in life mostly. But I,
I guess I more see it like I probably disagree a bit because for me, happiness and meaningfulness are kind of together, right? It's not that when you do something meaningful, you will get happiness out of it, right? But it's more that like doing something meaningful is a way to achieve happiness, right? I mean, we've talked about this a lot. Like one of my goals in life is to be happy, you know? And part of that for me is doing things that I think are meaningful, right? And because I also think it's hard for like there's some people out there who just can't necessarily do something meaningful, right? Or like do what they think would be meaningful to them. Because some people, and I don't know if this is what he meant by responsibility, right? But some people have responsibilities outside of themselves, right? Like is that what he means? Like people,
well, what do you mean responsibility outside of themselves?
right? Like people who grow up in poverty, right? Have who can't just do what they find meaningful, who have to literally have to do this work that they hate in order to get food and get a shelter over their head.
Oh,
It's hard for people to like, and this is not to say like that those people should just go out and search for happiness instead, right? Because that's also hard. I think there are circumstances out there that prevent people from necessarily doing things that are meaningful to them.
well, I think that example is exactly what would be meaningful in the sense that he's speaking. Because as I said, he attributes it to responsibility a lot of the time. And providing for yourself, working, or of course also providing for your kids, I think that is hugely meaningful.
Mm-hmm. Some
I
way.
think working in a 9 to 5 job is very meaningful, and that is kind of most likely disassociated from happiness, and I think that's what he means. Like whatever. I think the idea that some people can pursue what's meaningful, like in very few exceptions of, for example, a person who's completely paralyzed all the way down. Of course, they probably don't even have a grasp of what could be considered as meaningful. They
Yeah.
probably can't even consider it. But for the large population, I would say that there's almost always something you can do that is meaningful, or you can always express responsible behavior in a way in your life. I mean, just look around at the current state of your life. There's almost always something you can think of that you maybe haven't thought of because you've kind of been avoiding it, that you can fix. There's always a mess that you can sort of try to fix. Maybe it's in your local neighborhood. Maybe it's just something as simple as cleaning your apartment. There is meaningful behavior to be expressed in almost every corner of one's life, and that to me is sort of disassociated from happiness, because happiness to me, I think when he says happiness, he means sort of like the more if playing video games makes you happy, the gratifying happiness, I think, is what he makes the distinction between, and the sort of um, meaningful life of responsibility that he advocates.
Yeah, I guess there's just, for me, like two different kinds of meaningfulness. There's like the meaningfulness that like that's ascribed to us, as like a broader, like, this is how society understands a meaningful task, right? Like keeping head over our roots, right? And then there's also like the personal meaningfulness, like how do I create meaning in my life so that I'm not just working in this job that I hate, and this like doing the bare minimum to survive, right? And this is not talking about me, right? Because I'm privileged in many ways, right? Like the things that I can change are the things that will actually make me, like, will have true meaning for me, because I already have the baseline of I have a house, I have uh, enough money, I have food every day, right? But it's like there's things that, so those things that I can do to change are things that really can cause like personal meaning for me, right? And I think a lot of people aren't in a position to do that.
Sure, I think we can agree that there are different degrees of meaningfulness. Although I think as long as you're chase you're grasping responsibility in your current stage in life, I think that is meaningful. Whether we're talking about a 9 to 5 or doing something that could maybe be considered more meaningful in the grand scheme of your subjective life. I think definitely there's a distinction there in the degree to which maybe you or other people around you will find what you do particularly meaningful. But I think they're both meaningful. I think and and sometimes if you're lucky, happiness just kind of finds you in pursuing that meaning. I think happiness is just something that kind of arrives at you someday, and then it leaves you for a bit, and then it maybe resurfaces, and then you suddenly notice, oh, I'm at this point in my life, I'm quite happy. But by no means, I don't think happiness is ever going to be a fixed thing. I think that would be too much to ask for, and that's why I think I kind of agree with the sense that happiness is a luxury. It is not a promised thing, but that doesn't mean that meaningfulness in a way you're pursuing it um, doesn't have that temporary happiness, or that realistic happiness, I guess you could call it.
Yeah.
In it, like those two things can be intermingled, but it's
Yeah. I guess like I agree that happiness is not guaranteed or promised, and but also I guess like neither is meaning. Neither of them are guaranteed.
no, you make sure you have as your goal to find the meaning.
Yeah. But damn, this hour has gone by very quickly.
But we have 1 hour and 2.
Yeah, 1 hour and 4 minutes.
1 hour and 4.
Yeah. We should definitely get into some more Jordan Peterson stuff in a later podcast. I think there's a lot to unpack.
Sure.
But I think we have to wrap it up now.
We'll wrap it up.
But yeah, thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
See you.